On the eve of our engagement, my fiancée suddenly wanted to break it off because of a classmate she had met while studying abroad. She said, "Business marriages never end well. I've always regarded you as my good friend. Who would have thought that after the engagement was called off?" She pointed at my business partner and said, "Men are really all the same. Not a single one of you is any good. It's only been a few days since the engagement ended, and you're already impatient to find someone new. I really misjudged you." I asked her what on earth she was trying to do. Her voice trembled as she said, "George, you clearly said you would wait for me to change my mind." I was stunned. "Wait, when did I ever say that?" She answered righteously, "Your actions told me so. Otherwise, why didn't you cut off the investment in the Liu family? If it weren't for your Wang family injecting capital, the Liu Corporation's cash flow would have collapsed long ago. They would have gone bankrupt." I was speechless. "You should have said so earlier. Why didn't you say it sooner?" Chapter 1. I stood at the entrance of the banquet hall, my gaze cutting through the clinking crowd and landing on Willow, who was surrounded by several socialites not far away. "President Wang, congratulations," a business partner said as he approached with a glass of champagne. "You and Miss Liu are truly a match made in heaven." The corner of my lips lifted slightly. I raised my glass and took a small sip. "Thank you for coming." My eyes never left Willow, but I noticed her smile was a little forced. Her fingers kept rubbing the rim of her glass, one of her little habits whenever she felt nervous. "Willow," I walked to her side, my voice gentle. "Are you tired?" She clearly froze for a second before turning around. I'm fine. I had someone prepare your favorite macarons. They're in the lounge area." I naturally took the champagne glass from her hand. "Drink less. Your stomach isn't great." A socialite in a pink evening gown dramatically clutched her chest. "Oh my God. President Wang is way too attentive." "Willow, did you save the galaxy in your previous life or something?" Willow tugged at the corner of her lips and forced a smile. "He's always been like this." I caught the subtle change in her tone, but only gave her hand a light squeeze. "I'll get you some desserts." As I moved through the crowd, I heard whispers behind me. I heard they were engaged since they were little. Of course, the old master of the Wang family picked the Liu family's daughter years ago. The Liu family isn't doing too well lately. This engagement couldn't have come at a better time. My steps paused almost imperceptibly. My eyes darkened for a moment, but I quickly returned to normal. I walked straight to the dessert table, carefully selecting several of Willow Liu's favorites. I also specifically asked a waiter to prepare a cup of warm honey pomelo tea. Her stomach always acted up when she was nervous. The banquet supervisor handed me the tray with a smile. "President Wang really takes meticulous care of his fiancée." I smiled faintly. "I'm used to it." The first time I met Willow, I was 5 and she was 3. She had been sitting on the swing in the Wang family garden, crying because a tree branch had torn her dress. Without a word, I had taken off my jacket and wrapped it around her. The habit stuck. I always instinctively took care of her, protected her. When I returned to her side, she was staring at her phone, brows tightly knit. The moment she saw me, she quickly locked the screen and slipped it into her clutch. "Eat something." I handed her the tray. "The pomelo tea is just the right temperature." Willow took the cup. Her fingertips brushed mine accidentally and she pulled back as if electrocuted, almost knocking over the tea. I steadied the cup firmly, frowning slightly. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. It just feels a little unreal." Willow avoided my gaze. "We're really getting engaged." I studied her profile and spoke softly. "If you're not ready yet." "No, that's not what I mean." She hurriedly cut me off, forcing out a strained smile. "It's just that time went by so fast." Halfway through the banquet, my father called me over to entertain several important clients. I glanced back at Willow standing alone on the terrace. The moonlight traced her slender silhouette, making her look especially lonely. My heart tightened. I ended the conversation quickly, picked up her shawl, and followed her out. On the terrace, Willow was speaking into her phone in a low, urgent voice. Hearing footsteps, she spun around abruptly, her face pale. "It's chilly at night." I unfolded the shawl and draped it gently over her shoulders. "Who were you talking to?" "And no one. Just a friend." Willow hurriedly put away her phone. "Someone I met while studying abroad." I didn't press further. I simply brushed a fallen petal from her shoulder. "If you're tired, we can leave early." Willow looked up at me. Under the moonlight, my features seemed especially defined, my gaze so gentle it nearly broke her heart. She parted her lips, as if wanting to say something, but in the end only shook her head. "George," she suddenly called my name, her voice so soft it was almost inaudible. Willow looked at me, her eyes filled with complicated emotions. If one day I did something that disappointed you, would you forgive me?" I was stunned for a moment, then let out a soft laugh. "Haven't you caused enough trouble growing up? When have I ever not forgiven you?" "This time is different," Willow murmured under her breath. The host's voice echoed from inside the banquet hall, inviting the soon-to-be engaged couple onto the stage. I extended my hand to her. "Let's go. Everyone's waiting for us." Willow looked at my hand and hesitated for a second before placing hers in it. I immediately tightened my fingers and led her into the spotlight. Standing on stage, I could feel her hand trembling slightly. When the host announced the exchange of engagement rings, she almost failed to hold the diamond ring steady. Without drawing attention, I steadied her hand. Amid the applause, I slid the ring onto her finger, then bent down and gently kissed her forehead, our most intimate gesture, the way one would treat a precious treasure. Smile, I whispered in her ear. Everyone's taking pictures. Only then did Willow seem to snap back to reality and force out a smile. But I could tell, her heart wasn't here at all. After the banquet ended, I personally drove Willow home. In the car, she kept staring out the window, silent the entire way. We're here. I parked in front of the Liu family villa and walked around to open the passenger door for her. Get some good rest. Willow Liu stood at the entrance. Suddenly, she turned and hugged me. The embrace was light and brief. Before I could fully react, she had already let go. Good night, George. Without looking back, she ran into the house. I remained where I stood, watching her figure disappear behind the door, my brows knitting unconsciously. This wasn't the Willow I knew. She was definitely hiding something. At that moment, Willow leaned against the closed door, trembling as she took out her phone. On the screen was an unread message. Are you ready to come clean with him? She closed her eyes. Tears slid down silently as she whispered to herself. George. I'm sorry. Chapter 2. I rubbed my temples and removed my gold-rimmed glasses, placing them on the desk. The antique clock on the wall pointed to 1 in the morning. I had just finished a 4-hour transnational video conference. I stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. The garden in the night was quiet and serene. When we were children, Willow and I often played hide-and-seek there. Once, she fell asleep hiding in the bushes. The entire family searched for 2 hours before I finally found her in the mosquito-filled shrubs. Her face had been covered in bites, and she cried so hard she looked like a rain-soaked pear blossom. I carried her home on my back, coaxing her the entire way, telling her, I'll always be able to find you. The vibration of my phone cut through the memory. The screen showed Willow's name. I answered immediately. George. Can I come over right now? Her voice trembled slightly. In the background, I could hear a car engine running. Right now. I glanced at the time. What happened? I have something important I need to tell you in person. She paused. Very important. My brows drew together slightly. All right. I'll have the gate guard let you in. No. I'm already at the entrance. The call ended abruptly. I quickly headed downstairs. The moment I opened the front door, I saw Willow stepping out of an unfamiliar black sedan. What surprised me was that a strange man stepped out as well. He was tall, dressed in a casual suit. His slightly wavy brown hair caught the light under the porch lamp. He walked naturally to Willow's side and placed a hand around her waist in an intimate gesture. I stood at the doorway, my fingers unconsciously tightening against the doorframe. Come in. My voice was astonishingly calm. Willow bit her lower lip and led the men into the living room. Would you like something to drink? I asked, as if this were an ordinary late-night visit. Willow waved her hand. No. She took a deep breath. George, this is Makoto. We met while I was studying in the UK. Makoto stepped forward and extended his hand, wearing a polite smile. I've long heard of President Wang. I shook his hand briefly, feeling the deliberate increase in pressure from his grip. The glint in Makoto's eyes reminded me of the opponents who fought me openly and secretly in the business world. Have a seat. I gestured to the sofa and took the single chair opposite them. I noticed Willow sitting pressed tightly against Makoto, their thighs touching, like conjoined twins. Silence spread through the living room. Finally, Willow spoke. George, I'm sorry for coming so late, but I can't hide it anymore. She grabbed Makoto's hand. Makoto and we're already together. My expression did not change in the slightest. Only my right index finger tapped lightly against the armrest, one of my habits when exercising extreme restraint. So, I asked. Willow seemed unprepared for my reaction. Her speech quickened. I love him. We've already promised ourselves to each other. I only agreed to the engagement today because I didn't want to embarrass you in front of so many people. I understand. I nodded, my voice still steady. So you came tonight hoping I would withdraw on my own. Makoto cut in at that moment. President Wang, we're sorry to meet under these circumstances, but Willow said you're a reasonable man. We hope you can understand that true love cannot be forced. His tone was humble, but his eyes carried provocation. Of course, if you're concerned about your reputation, I can refrain from making our relationship public for the time being. I suddenly laughed, though there was no emotion in my eyes. Mr. Ito, you're overthinking it. The engagement between Willow and me was our elders' arrangement to begin with. If her heart belongs to someone else, I won't stand in her way. Chapter 3. Willow suddenly looked up, disbelief flashing in her eyes. Why, you're just agreeing like that? What else? I countered. Force you to stay by my side. That's not the Wang family's way. Makoto squeezed Willow's hand. See, I told you President Wang isn't the type to throw his weight around. Some people love to dress up business marriages as deep, undying love, when in reality it's all about interests. Willow frowned. Makoto. For the first time, my gaze turned cold. Mr. Ito, you've only just arrived. I'm afraid your understanding of the Wang and Liu families is limited. I suggest you do your homework before making comments. Makoto Ito's expression stiffened briefly, but he quickly put his smile back on. Of course, that was careless of me. Willow looked at me, then at Makoto, and suddenly stood up. George, we've known each other for too long, so long that we can't even bring ourselves to hurt each other. Right, we're better suited to being good friends, not husband and wife. In my heart, you'll always be my good brother. I slowly rose to my feet, standing more than half a head taller than her. I looked down at her, my gaze as deep as the sea. I'll ask only once. Are you certain? I'm certain. Willow lifted her chin, though her fingers twisted tightly in the hem of her clothes. She was certain that what she needed wasn't meticulous protection, but a passionate, heart-racing kind of love. All right, I nodded. Tomorrow I'll explain everything to both families. The responsibility for breaking off the engagement will fall on me. That's great, Makoto immediately said. That way it'll be good for Mr. Ito. I cut him off, my voice as cold as ice. What happens between Willow and me does not require commentary from an outsider. The living room fell into complete silence. Willow tugged uneasily at Makoto's sleeve, and he barely suppressed the anger on his face. It's late. You should go. I walked toward the door, my intention to see them out unmistakable. Willow grabbed her handbag and headed quickly for the entrance, Makoto close behind. Just before stepping over the threshold, Willow suddenly turned back. George, we're still friends, right? Under the moonlight, half my face was illuminated, half in shadow. I remained silent for a few seconds, then said softly, "Good night, Willow." The sound of the door closing was light, yet it echoed through the empty villa. I stood there without moving. After a long while, I returned to the living room and picked up the half glass of water Willow had left behind. She hadn't taken a single sip. I slowly poured it down the sink. Soft footsteps came from upstairs. Uncle Joe, the old housekeeper, walked down wearing a coat. "Young master, were there guests at this hour?" "It's nothing, Uncle Joe." My voice had already returned to calm. "Have someone replace the sofa covers in the living room tomorrow. The champagne-colored set. All of them." I turned and walked upstairs, my steps still slow and steady, but only I knew that at this moment, it felt as if a hollow had been carved out of my chest. More than 20 years of habit and expectation had been uprooted in a single night. Outside the villa, inside the black sedan, Willow looked back through the car window at the brightly lit windows of the Wang residence and suddenly felt an inexplicable panic. "What's wrong?" Makoto started the engine. "Having second thoughts?" "No." Willow shook her head. "It just feels too smooth. It doesn't feel real." Makoto let out a scoff. "What's not smooth about it? No matter how powerful George is, it's not like he can force you to marry him." He reached over and pinched Willow's cheek. "Stop overthinking it, baby. Starting tomorrow, we can finally be together openly." Willow forced a smile and leaned back in her seat. As the car drove away from the Wang villa, she couldn't help but look back once more. Under the moonlight, the mansion she had grown up playing in gradually receded into the distance, like something she couldn't quite name, quietly slipping through her fingers. Chapter 4. The first rays of sunlight poured into the bedroom. I was already fully dressed, standing before the floor-to-ceiling window. My phone screen lit up. A message from my father. "I heard you took the initiative to break off the engagement. The old master just called." He was shaking with anger. "I need an explanation." My fingers paused over the screen before replying. "Willow's heart belongs to someone else. There's no point in forcing it. I'll personally apologize to Grandpa Liu." The moment I pressed send, another message came in. "The board of directors is already asking, are we still investing in the Liu Group's project?" My gaze darkened slightly. In recent years, the Liu Group's cash flow had been strained. That new energy project was their last hope of turning things around. Originally, after the engagement banquet, the Wang Group was supposed to release the first round of funding. "Proceed as planned," I replied. "Business is business. It doesn't mix with personal feelings." I had barely put my phone down when it rang. The screen showed Uncle Liu. I took a deep breath and answered. "George, Willow just came back and told me you're breaking off the engagement. What on earth is going on?" Diego's voice was both anxious and furious. "Uncle, I had planned to visit today to explain in person," I said evenly. "Willow has found someone more suitable. I believe her choice should be respected." "Ridiculous. Who could possibly be more suitable than you? That exchange student named Ito whatever. Has Willow been fed some kind of love potion?" I walked into the dressing room and retrieved a document from the safe. "Uncle, I'll bring the termination agreement this afternoon. As for Willow's feelings, I think she has the right to decide for herself." There was a long silence on the other end. Finally, Diego let out a heavy sigh. "George, did you already know about this?" "I found out last night," I replied calmly. "But please don't blame Willow. She simply chose the person she believes is right." After hanging up, I stood before the mirror and adjusted my tie. The man reflected there looked composed, though a trace of fatigue lingered faintly beneath his eyes. I recalled Willow's expression when she said we were too familiar, so familiar we couldn't even bring ourselves to hurt each other. As if more than 20 years of affection had been nothing but a joke. Wong Group Headquarters, 88th floor, President's Office. President Wong. The documents for the Lu Group project are ready. My secretary placed a stack of files on the desk. However, Director Wong from Finance wants to know if the investment amount should be adjusted. Considering the current situation, proceed according to the original plan. I signed without looking up. Also, investigate someone for me. Makoto, studied in the UK, returned to the country within the past year. The secretary had just turned to leave when the office door was suddenly pushed open. Willow Lu stormed in, 2 security guards trailing behind her, trying unsuccessfully to stop her. Miss Lu insisted on seeing you, one of them said awkwardly. I waved them away. After the door closed, Willow flung a stack of photos onto my desk. Care to explain? Her voice trembled. You break off the engagement yesterday, and today you're already rushing to find someone new. I lowered my eyes to the photos. They showed me at a restaurant last week discussing business with a female client. The angles were deliberately chosen to make it look like an intimate date. The edges had even been intentionally cropped to remove the other colleagues who had been present. I shrugged. A business meeting. I pushed the photos back toward her. Who gave these to you? Does it matter? Willow let out a cold laugh. I just didn't expect that while you kept saying you respected my choice, behind my back you'd be this eager. I stood up and walked around the desk until I was directly in front of her. Willow, you've known me for over 20 years. Do you really believe I would do something like this? She took a step back. I didn't, until Makoto showed me these. He was right. You businessmen are the best at putting on one face in public and another in private. Makoto. My eyes turned icy. He followed me and took these photos. Willow shot back emotionally. He just happened to see it. George, do you know what disgusts me the most? It's not that you're seeing another woman, it's that yesterday you acted so generous. Chapter 5. I looked at her quietly, my gaze probing, almost amused. After a long moment, I asked, you believe him, but not me. I believe the evidence. Willow pointed at the photos. Makoto's right, you're exactly the kind of person who... Enough. I cut her off. My voice remained calm, yet carried unquestionable authority. Willow. Our engagement has already been dissolved. Who I meet is none of your concern. Even if I were seeing someone new, so what? As for these photos, I picked one up and held it against the light. Tell Makoto that next time he secretly takes photos, he should remember to use a camera with higher resolution. Willow's face flushed red, then pale. Why, you have nothing to explain. If you believe him, there's no need to ask me. I walked back behind my desk and sat down. If there's nothing else, I have a meeting to prepare for. Willow stood there, her chest rising and falling sharply. She had expected to see me flustered, scrambling to explain. My composure only fueled her anger. George, I never thought you were this kind of person. She snatched up the photos and stormed out, slamming the door. The office fell silent again. I picked up the intercom. Secretary, investigate Makoto's background. The more detailed, the better. 3 days later, the top private club in Rose City. Willow walked into the private room with her arm linked through Makoto's. Inside, it was already filled with their friends, mostly people from her study abroad circle. Ever since news of the broken engagement spread, her social media accounts had been flooded with questions. Willow, you really broke off the engagement with George? A girl in a red dress asked eagerly. Why? Makoto answered first. Because some people look polished on the surface, but are rotten underneath. He smiled meaningfully. Willow finally saw his true colors. The room erupted in murmurs, everyone pressing for details. Willow took a sip of wine and said vaguely, we just realized we weren't suitable. George isn't as good as I thought. Oh my God, another girl exclaimed. George is famous in our circle for being disciplined and self-restrained. So many socialites tried to get close to him and failed. Willow, you're not saying he... Makoto suddenly pulled out his phone. Perfect timing. I happen to have proof. He opened the photos, the very same ones he had shown Willow days ago. Look, this is your so-called self-restraint. The room buzzed instantly. Willow felt a flicker of discomfort. These were, after all, privately taken photos. But Makoto had already begun circling the room with his phone, making sure everyone saw clearly. And that's not all. Makoto continued, lowering his voice. The Wong Group has recently been secretly suppressing the Lu Group. Several Lu projects have already been snatched away. What? Willow shot to her feet. Why didn't I know about this? Your father didn't want you to worry. Makoto wrapped an arm around her shoulders. But I have friends in investment banking. They're well informed. George may act generous on the surface, but behind the scenes he's retaliating commercially. A man like that. The private room door was suddenly pushed open. Diego stood at the entrance, his expression dark. Willow, come home with me. The room fell silent. Willow stood up uneasily. Dad, what's wrong? Diego cast a cold glance at the phone in Makoto's hand. Spreading rumors outside, this is the kind of judgment you have. He then turned to the others in the room. The Wang and Liu families have cooperated for many years without conflict. Please do not believe certain individuals' fabricated claims. Chapter 6. On the drive back, Willow couldn't hold back anymore. Dad, those photos are real. George is a hypocrite. Photos can be taken out of context. Diego gripped the steering wheel tightly. Willow, I had someone investigate. Not only did the Wang group not suppress us, they added another 50 million on top of the original investment. The finance department received the funds this morning. Willow froze. That's impossible. And that Makoto. Diego's voice turned even colder. He said he works at Goldman Sachs. I asked around. There is no such person at Goldman Sachs London. Willow's face turned deathly pale. There must be some mistake. Makoto. Enough. Diego slammed his hand against the steering wheel. I don't care whether you're truly foolish or pretending to be. From today on, you are not to see that man again, and you must apologize to George. I won't. Willow screamed. You've all been fooled by George. He's just a... The car screeched to a stop at the roadside. Diego turned to stare at his daughter, his eyes filled with unprecedented severity. Willow, your willfulness needs limits. You know the situation of the Liu group. The Wang family is our last hope. If your stubbornness causes... Before he could finish, Willow cut him off. So I'm supposed to sell myself to save the family. Is that it? Tears burst from her eyes. All you care about is money, the company. She yanked the door open and ran out. Ignoring her father's shouts behind her, she flagged down a taxi and disappeared down the road. At the same time, in the president's office of the Wang Group, President Wang, we've confirmed everything. The secretary handed over a file. Makoto did study in the UK, but he was expelled last year for academic misconduct. After returning to the country, he's been circulating among wealthy social circles, specifically targeting heiresses. These are the profiles of 3 women he has been dating simultaneously. I skimmed through the documents, my expression growing colder by the second. Make backups of everything. Don't make this public yet. There's one more thing, the secretary added. Chairman Liu just called. He wants to meet you, likely regarding Miss Liu. I looked out the window. The sky was heavy and overcast, as if rain were imminent. Reply to Uncle Liu. I'll visit him personally tonight. The secretary hesitated. President Wang, forgive me for speaking frankly. After Miss Liu's behavior, why are you still helping the Liu family? I was silent for a moment. More than 20 years of ties aren't something you cut off overnight. I closed the file. Remember, don't let Willow know about what we found today. Not yet. The secretary nodded and left. I picked up the photo frame on my desk. Inside was a picture of Willow, Liu and me at 15, standing by the sea, both of us smiling brightly. I gently traced the edge of the frame with my thumb, then turned it face down on the desk. Outside the window, the rain finally began to fall. Chapter 7. The rain poured heavier and heavier. Willow stood in the corridor outside her father's office, her fingers tightly gripping the strap of her handbag. It had been 3 days. Ever since their argument in the car, her father hadn't returned home. She had made dozens of calls, all redirected to voicemail. Miss, the chairman is in a meeting, the secretary said politely, blocking her way. Would you like to wait in the lounge? Willow shook her head and pushed open the office door directly. It was empty. Documents were piled high on the desk. The ashtray was filled with more than a dozen cigarette butts. Beside it sat an open bottle of anti-anxiety medication. Her father never took those in the office. Where is he meeting? She asked the secretary, her voice trembling involuntarily. The secretary hesitated. Emergency board meeting on the 36th floor. The Liu Group's cash flow has encountered some issues. Willow rushed toward the elevator, her heart pounding like a drum. She knew the Liu Group had been struggling, but had it reached the point of an emergency board meeting? Outside the conference room on the 36th floor, through the heavy wooden doors, she heard her father's hoarse voice. If there's no additional capital injection, the new energy project will have to be suspended. That means all our previous investment. A male voice interrupted him. Chairman Liu, you were the one who guaranteed that the Wang Group would inject capital. Now that the engagement is dissolved, it's only logical for George to reconsider. But you shouldn't have concealed this from the board. The Wang Group has not withdrawn its investment. Diego's voice suddenly rose. The first payment has already arrived. Then why is the finance department saying? Willow couldn't listen any longer. She pushed the door open. The room fell silent instantly. More than a dozen board members turned to look at her. Diego stood before the projection screen. Dark circles hung heavily beneath his eyes. His suit was wrinkled, as if he hadn't changed in days. Willow. He was clearly startled for a moment before his face darkened. Leave. This isn't your place. Dad. What's happening to the Liu Group? Willow stood her ground. Why didn't anyone tell me? An elderly director sighed. Miss Liu, your father insisted on keeping it from you. The situation is very serious. Without at least 300 million in liquidity, we'll have to begin large-scale layoffs next month. Enough. Diego slammed his hand on the table. Willow, go back to my office and wait. Willow had never seen her father lose control like this. Numbly, she nodded and stepped out of the conference room. In the hallway, her trembling fingers dialed Makoto's number. Makoto, the Lu Group is going bankrupt, she choked out the moment he answered. What? Makoto sounded shocked. That serious? Hasn't your dad figured something out? I don't know. They're in a meeting. Makoto, I'm scared. Don't be scared, baby. His voice softened. I'm meeting an important client right now. I'll come see you tonight. By the way, don't touch the properties and stocks under your name yet. Let me analyze everything for you first. After hanging up, Willow felt a flicker of comfort. At least Makoto was still by her side. She thought of George, and bitterness surged in her chest, just as Makoto had said. The Wong Group had begun retaliating by pulling back support. That evening, Willow fell asleep in her father's office while waiting. She was awakened by the sound of an argument. Rubbing her eyes, she saw her father shouting into his phone. What do you mean only 3 more days? President Lee, we've worked together for 20 years. Whatever was said on the other end made Diego deflate like a punctured balloon. He sank into his chair. Fine, 3 days. He hung up and finally noticed his daughter awake. Dad, Willow spoke timidly. Diego rubbed his face wearily. Let's talk at home. The Lu villa was brightly lit yet eerily cold. Simple dishes sat on the dining table, barely touched. Finally, Willow broke the silence. So, the Wong Group really withdrew their investment. Diego put down his chopsticks, irritation creeping into his voice. I told you. No, the first payment arrived on time, but the originally promised second round. George said it requires reevaluation. That's retaliation. Willow burst out. I knew he wasn't that generous. Retaliation. Diego let out a cold laugh. Then who do you think anonymously injected $150 million into the Lu Group? Willow froze. What anonymous injection? 3 days ago, Diego said slowly. An offshore company contacted us through an intermediary, offering short-term financing at an unbelievably low interest rate. He stared at her. I only found out today that the actual controller of that company is George. Chapter 8. The spoon in Willow's hand clattered against the plate. That's impossible. Why would he do it anonymously? Diego shot back. Why do you think? His voice suddenly rose. Because he knows how stubborn you are. He knows you'd rather let the Lu Group go bankrupt than accept his help if you knew it came from him. Willow stood up abruptly, the chair scraping harshly against the floor. This isn't help, it's humiliation. She snapped. He just wants me to know that without him, the Lu family is nothing. Diego sprang to his feet, his face flushed red. Willow, when did you become this unreasonable? For that Makoto with a questionable background, you'd really watch the company your grandfather built from scratch collapse. Makoto, he what? Diego cut her off. What has he done for you these 3 days? How many calls has he made? And George? Even after you humiliated him publicly, he's still helping the Lu family in secret. Can't you tell who's sincere and who's not? Willow's chest heaved violently. What kind of spell did George put on you? Those photos clearly. Photos. Diego let out an incredulous laugh. You're going to deny a man who's protected you since childhood because of a few out-of-context photos. Willow, you're 24, not 14. Whatever Makoto says, you believe. Whatever George does, you doubt. Are you blind? Dad. Tears streamed down Willow's face. How can you say that? It was clearly George who. Suddenly, Diego clutched his chest. His face drained of color as he staggered, grabbing onto the dining table for support. Dad. Willow rushed forward to steady him. He pushed her hand away, struggling to pull a pill bottle from his pocket. He poured out 2 tablets and swallowed them dry. His breathing grew heavy. Sweat beaded across his forehead. Weakly, he forced out the words, call an ambulance. In the hospital corridor, Willow curled up on a bench, staring at the red light above the emergency room. Acute myocardial infarction, the doctor had said. Fortunately, he was brought in time. She scrolled through her phone mechanically. Makoto had sent several messages, asking about the family's exact financial situation, saying he could help find investors, but that she would need to sign a few authorization documents first. A new message popped up from an unfamiliar number. How is Chairman Lu? Do you need help contacting specialists? Willow stared at the message for a long time. Suddenly, realization dawned. She typed back, George. There was no reply. But 10 minutes later, the hospital director personally arrived, saying that top cardiac specialists in the country had been contacted for a remote consultation. Willow tightened her grip on her phone. It felt as though a heavy stone was pressing against her chest. She found George's number in her contacts. Her finger hovered over the call button. In the end, she didn't press it. At 3 in the morning, Diego was out of danger and transferred to a VIP ward. Exhausted, Willow returned home, only to find Makoto waiting at the entrance. Baby. He pulled her into his arms. I was worried sick. How's your dad? Willow let him hold her. Then she noticed the corner of a document sticking out of his suit pocket. What's that? Makoto quickly shoved it back inside. Nothing, just some information on potential investors who might help the Lu Group. You'd need to sign an authorization so I can represent you. Willow shook her head tiredly. Tomorrow. I'm too exhausted. All right. Makoto kissed her forehead. Oh, by the way, I looked into that anonymous investment. It's not George at all. It's a company called Hongyuan Capital. George is lying to you. Willow's head snapped up. Really? Of course, Makoto spoke with absolute certainty. I have a friend at the financial bureau. We checked thoroughly. George just wants you to feel indebted and obediently go back to him. Willow bit her lip. The scale in her heart tilted once more. She knew it. George wasn't that kind-hearted. Early the next morning, Willow went to the hospital to see her father. Outside the ward, she heard voices from inside. Uncle Lu, please focus on recovering. There's no rush to repay that money. Consider it an advance from the Wang Group for the project. George's voice, low and gentle. Willow froze at the doorway. Chapter 9. George. Diego's voice was weak but steady. That child Willow, she's been too foolish. I apologize to you on her behalf. There's no need. I said softly. She's just placed too much trust in that man. That Makoto. I've uncovered more information. Diego coughed a few times. He's not some outstanding student at all. He specializes in deceiving wealthy young women. I know. My tone cooled slightly. But Willow won't believe us right now. Uncle Lu, focus on your recovery. I'll keep an eye on the company. Outside the door, Willow gripped the frame so tightly her knuckles turned white. She should walk in and expose George's so-called lies. Yet a small voice deep inside her whispered, "Who is actually lying?" The door opened. I stepped out of the room. Seeing her, I paused briefly before returning to composure. Your father needs rest. Don't stay too long. I brushed past her, a faint scent of sandalwood lingering in the air. Suddenly, Willow grabbed my wrist. Why did you make the investment anonymously? I didn't pull away, nor did I look at her. The Lu Group needed the money. It doesn't matter who provided it. Then why admit it? Your father found out. There was no need to continue hiding it. I gently withdrew my hand and gave her shoulder a light pat. But don't worry. I've instructed the finance department to continue stating publicly that the funds came from Hongyuan Capital. Her chest tightened. Do you think this will make me grateful? That I'll come back to you? At last, I looked at her. My gaze was tired, distant. Willow, not everything revolves around you. After a pause, I added. That money was given out of respect for the decades-long relationship between our families. It has nothing to do with you. I turned and walked away, my footsteps fading down the corridor. Willow was left standing there alone. The morning dew had not yet fully evaporated when I stood once more outside the VIP ward, a stack of documents in hand. Through the small window in the door, I saw Diego sitting upright against the headboard, taking a phone call. His complexion looked better than yesterday. President Wang. You're here. The attending physician approached. Chairman Lu is recovering well. With 2 more days of observation, he can be discharged. I nodded. Thank you for your care. Of course. The doctor hesitated before adding. Miss Lu didn't stay overnight. She said she had urgent matters. My expression remained neutral. She has her own life. When I entered the room, Diego had just ended his call. His face was grave. Uncle Lu. Good morning. I placed the documents on the bedside table. Here's the progress report on the new energy project. The second round of funding was transferred this morning. Diego removed his reading glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. George, I truly don't know how to thank you. There's no need. I sat down beside the bed. I've spoken to the board. No one will take advantage of your illness to cause trouble. That's not what I meant. Diego sighed heavily. Willow went to see that Makoto again last night. I called her. She didn't answer. My expression didn't change. She has the right to choose her partner. But that Makoto, Diego straightened up emotionally, only to wince from the pain in his chest. The private investigator I hired confirmed it. He's a professional con artist. He specifically targets wealthy daughters for money. He even has a record in the UK. I took a file from my inner jacket pocket. I found similar information. He's simultaneously involved with at least 3 women, all only daughters from affluent families. Diego flipped through the pages, his face growing darker. Does Willow know about this? I haven't told her. My voice was steady. She wouldn't believe me. That foolish girl. Diego closed his eyes in anguish. George, give her another chance. Once she sees that bastard's true colors. Uncle Lu, I interrupted gently. Willow and I are over. I'm helping the Lu Group because of the long-standing friendship between our families. Chapter 10. Silence settled in the hospital room. Outside the window, a sparrow landed briefly on the ledge, chirped twice, and flew away. I understand, Diego finally said. It's just a pity. You two were so close since childhood. I rose to my feet. I have a meeting this afternoon. I'll visit again tomorrow. If you need anything, contact me anytime. After leaving the hospital, I didn't return to the company. Instead, I drove to a cafe in the western part of the city. It was a discreet little place Uncle Joe had recommended, suitable for discussing important matters, as he had put it. Pushing open the glass door with a small wind chime hanging above it, I was greeted by the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee. My eyes were immediately drawn to a figure by the window. Anna Sue sat there, flipping through an architecture design magazine. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a soft glow around her silhouette. Today she wore a simple light blue blouse, her hair loosely tied back, revealing the graceful line of her neck. So different from the radiant Sue heiress at business banquets. Right now, she exuded a quiet, intellectual beauty. I approached the table. Have you been waiting long? Anna looked up, her eyes curving slightly as she smiled. I just got here. You look sunnier than last time. This was, in my understanding, our first formal meeting. 2 weeks ago, at that business gala, a mutual acquaintance had introduced us. After a brief conversation, we realized we were both fellow victims of relentless parental matchmaking pressure. Coincidentally, Anna mentioned she had just ended an unpleasant relationship. Is that so? I replied. You look more authentic than at the banquet. I chose my words carefully. Anna laughed. Because I'm not wearing makeup. Because you're not wearing high heels. I gestured toward the white sneakers placed beside her chair. That day you were armed with 10-centimeter weapons. Your presence filled the room. Anna burst out laughing. That was armor. Facing that many business tycoons for the first time, I had to suit up. The waiter brought over 2 cups of hand-poured coffee. Mine had no sugar. Anna had remembered the preference I casually mentioned last time. So, Anna stirred her coffee thoughtfully. Are we really going to pretend to date? My parents have started arranging blind dates again. I met 2 last week, each more outrageous than the last. The corner of my lips lifted. My father too. Yesterday he even hinted that if I can't find someone suitable, a man would do. Anna nearly choked on her coffee. Chairman Wong is that open-minded. Desperate. I corrected lightly. What about you? Why choose me as your shield? Anna rested her chin on her hand, thinking. Because you seem not annoying. And I did my homework. No bad habits, aside from being a workaholic. Fair enough. I raised my cup. I heard Miss Sue once stayed in her studio for 3 straight days finishing a design draft. We talked easily, from work to travel, to our equally absurd matchmaking experiences. I discovered that Anna was not only intelligent but also possessed a refreshingly straightforward sense of humor. Talking to her required no careful weighing of every word. That sense of ease was something I hadn't felt in a long time. Halfway through, Anna suddenly said, I've heard about you and Willow. It's been all over the social circles. My fingers paused against the rim of my cup. That's in the past. I know. Anna met my gaze directly. I just mean, if you're not ready to start something new, even if it's just pretend, we can wait. I looked at her properly for the first time. Her eyes were clear, no calculation, no pity, only honest respect. Thank you, I said softly, but I've already let go. Some things can't be forced. Anna nodded, about to respond, when a sharp female voice suddenly cut through the air. Chapter 11. George, what a coincidence. Willow stood by our table, impeccably made up, dressed in the latest Wong collection dress, a limited edition handbag dangling from her wrist. She looked as if she had just stepped out of a luxury boutique. Makoto was nowhere to be seen. I frowned slightly. Willow, how did you? She cut me off. Aren't you going to introduce us? Her gaze swept over Anna with undisguised hostility. And this is Anna, I said calmly. Vice President of Sue Architecture. Anna Sue. This is Willow. Anna extended her hand politely. I've heard a lot about Miss Liu. Willow pretended not to see the offered hand. She pulled out a chair and sat down instead. George, you move fast. How long has it been since we broke up? And you've already found someone new? Other patrons in the cafe had begun glancing in our direction. My expression cooled. Willow, mind the setting. What? Afraid to admit it, she raised her voice. Yesterday you were acting all devoted in front of my dad. Today you're out on a date. George, you're unbelievable. Anna placed her cup down gently. Miss Liu, I think you misunderstand. President Wong and I are just what? A business meeting. Willow sneered. In a cafe this romantic, dressed like this. She turned to me. Did you pick this place on purpose to provoke me? These are all my favorite shops around here. I inhaled slowly. Willow, let's talk outside. Why should we? Her eyes reddened. What are you hiding? Anna stood up suddenly. I'll step away for a moment. She gave me a look of understanding and left gracefully. Only after she was out of earshot did I lower my voice. What exactly do you want? What do I want? Willow's voice trembled. George, you said you'd wait for me to come back. I stared at her. When did I ever say that? You didn't have to say it. She clenched her fists. Your actions did. The anonymous investment, helping my dad contact specialists, wasn't all that meant to make me regret leaving. I looked at her quietly. My gaze had become so unfamiliar that it made her uneasy. Willow, you think too highly of yourself. I helped the Liu Group purely out of respect for our family's decades-long friendship. I paused. As for waiting for you, you're no longer worth that effort. The words cut like a blade. Willow shot to her feet, knocking over her coffee cup. Dark liquid spread across the table. You bastard. Her voice broke. You clearly all these years. That was the past. I pulled out tissues and began wiping the table. Willow, as a former friend, I feel obligated to remind you, Makoto has problems. Enough. She stepped back, disgust flooding her eyes. Even now you're trying to smear him. George, you make me sick. My hand stilled midair. The last trace of warmth in my eyes extinguished. I nodded lightly, my voice as faint as early winter mist. Very well, then I have nothing more to say. Anna returned at that moment, holding a few napkins. Do you need help? Willow watched the two of us standing side by side and suddenly found it hard to breathe. I turned to Anna, my tone gentle. It's fine, we should go. George, Willow called after me. You'll regret this. Business marriages never end well. I glanced back, a faint smile curving my lips. Who said this is a business marriage? After we left, Willow remained seated at the messy table. A waiter approached cautiously. Miss, is there anything else you need? She shook her head mechanically and pulled out her phone, dialing Makoto's number. It rang more than 10 times. No answer. She called again. This time, someone picked up, a woman's voice. Hello. Willow froze. I'm looking for Makoto. He's in the shower, the woman replied lazily, amusement lacing her tone. And you are? Willow's fingers tightened around the phone until her knuckles turned white. Who are you? I'm his girlfriend, the woman said with a light laugh. Who are you? Willow ended the call abruptly, her entire body trembling. She dialed again. The phone was switched off. Outside the cafe's glass windows, the sunlight remained bright and warm. Willow stared in the direction George and Anna had walked away, and for the first time, she realized, this time, no one would turn back for her. Chapter 12. Rain battered against the taxi window, blurring the neon lights outside into streaks of color. Willow curled up in the back seat, clutching her phone. On the screen was a photo of Makoto kissing a strange woman in front of a hotel. The private investigator's email contained more bank transfer records, profiles of other women he had been dating simultaneously, even his criminal record in the UK. Miss, we're here. The driver's voice pulled her back to reality. Willow looked up. The taxi had stopped in front of Makoto's apartment building. After paying, she rushed into the rain toward the elevator. Her high heels splashed into puddles, muddy water staining the hem of her trousers. As the elevator ascended, the unfamiliar woman's voice replayed in her mind. I'm his girlfriend. It felt as if a burning coal had been shoved into her stomach, the heat searing upward from her chest to her throat. Ding! The elevator doors opened. Willow stormed to Makoto's door, raising her hand to pound on it, only to hear a woman's laughter from inside. Her hand froze midair. Trembling, she pressed the doorbell. Footsteps approached. The door opened. Makoto stood there wearing only pajama pants, droplets of water still clinging to his chest. He had clearly just showered. His smile stiffened the moment he saw her. Willow, why are you? She shoved past him into the apartment. In the living room, a woman wearing Makoto's shirt sat on the sofa painting her nails. 2 glasses of red wine and half-eaten steak sat on the coffee table. Oh, so this is the girl from the phone call. The woman arched a brow provocatively. Makoto, you do have a type, rich girls. Makoto hurriedly shut the door. Willow, listen to me. She hurled her phone at his face. Explain what? She demanded hoarsely. Explain juggling 3 girlfriends, faking your academic background, or explain the 2 million you borrowed from me. Makoto caught the phone. When he saw the photo on the screen, his expression shifted. You investigated me. My dad hired a private investigator. Willow's voice cracked. Do you know what I did for you? I called my father blind. I turned against George, and you. George? Makoto suddenly let out a cold laugh. You're still thinking about George? Willow, you think he's some saint? The methods he used to investigate me, are they any cleaner than mine? At least he never lied to me, she shouted, trembling. Ha! Makoto spread his hands exaggeratedly. Then go back to him. See if he still wants you. He's doing just fine with the Sioux heiress now. What are you to him? The word struck like a blade, precisely piercing her most fragile place. She staggered back. An image flashed in her mind. George in the cafe. The way he looked at Anna. That softness, that ease. It used to belong to her. Give me back the money, she said through clenched teeth. 2 million. Now. Makoto's face twisted. Money? What money? That was an investment you willingly made. Do you have an IOU? A transfer note? On the sofa, the woman blew gently on her nails. Makoto, don't be so fierce, she drawled. Miss Liu, why don't you sit down for a drink? We can talk it out. Willow looked at the two of them. A wave of absurdity washed over her. How had she thrown away more than 20 years of affection for someone like this? How had she believed such clumsy lies? Keep it, she spat. Buy yourself a coffin. Then she turned and yanked the door open, running out. The rain poured even harder. Willow wandered the streets aimlessly, soaked through, Her hair plastered to her face. Passing a jewelry store, she noticed the television in the display window broadcasting financial news. Today, the Wang Group and Su Architecture announced a strategic partnership. There are also rumors of an upcoming marriage alliance between the two families. George Wang, heir of the Wang Group, was photographed attending an event alongside Anna Su, the Su family's only daughter. Willow froze. On the screen was a photo of George holding an umbrella over Anna. He was slightly leaning down, listening to her speak, the expression on his face, so familiar, and yet no longer hers. The phone vibrated. It was a message from Diego. Willow, come home. George has helped us contact a new investor. The Lu Corporation is saved. In the rain, Willow's tears slid down silently. She hailed a taxi to the Wang Group headquarters. The Wang Tower was brightly lit. Even though it was already 9 at night, as the core of a business empire, quite a few employees were still working overtime. Soaked to the skin, Willow walked into the lobby. The receptionist stood up in surprise. Miss Lu, is George here? Willow's voice was hoarse. President Wang is in a meeting on the 68th floor. But Willow had already rushed toward the elevator. She unlocked the private elevator with her fingerprint. George had never revoked her access. As the elevator ascended, Willow looked at herself in the mirror. Her makeup was smudged, her hair tangled, her eyes swollen and red. This disheveled figure was completely different from the proud heiress of the Lu family she once was. The door to the conference room on the 68th floor was half open. George's voice came from inside. So this project will be handed over to President Song for supervision. The Su Corporation will send a technical team over. We expect that by next week. Willow pushed the door open, and every gaze in the room turned toward her. Chapter 13. At the head of the conference table, I was dressed in a deep blue suit. Documents spread out before me. When I saw her, my brows knit slightly, but the expression quickly faded. Meeting adjourned for 10 minutes. I said to my team, please take a short break. One by one, they filed out, their curious glances sweeping over Willow. The last person out thoughtfully closed the door. You should have called first, I said. I stood and retrieved a towel from the cabinet nearby, handing it to her. What happened? Willow didn't take it. Rainwater dripped from her hair onto the carpet. You already knew, didn't you? About everything, Makoto. I placed the towel on the conference table. I knew some of it. Why didn't you tell me? Her voice trembled. You just watched me jump into a fire pit. I stared at her. Didn't I tell you? Have you lost your memory? I warned you not to trust him. Do you remember what you said to me? George, you make me sick. The words landed like a slap. Willow staggered slightly. Yes, she had said that. In the cafe, in front of Anna. I was blinded by him. Her voice broke. George, I was wrong. I really was wrong. I walked to the window, turning my back to her. Did you come here hoping I'd say, it's okay, I forgive you? She whispered. I cut her off. Then let me tell you, I forgive you. I turned around. But that changes nothing. Her knees buckled. She gripped the back of a chair to keep from collapsing. We can start over, she pleaded. Like before. There is no before. My voice was soft, yet it struck her like a hammer. I've moved forward. You should too. Is it because of Anna? She cried sharply. How long have you even known her? What does she know about you? Does she know you always drink warm milk before bed? Does she know your preferences? Does she know you? She knows I deserve respect. I interrupted. That's enough. The quiet accusation in that sentence cut deeper than any shout. Willow pressed her lips together. Today I met Makoto's other girlfriends, she said with a bitter laugh. He deceived me, just like I deceived you. Is this karma? I was silent for a moment, then picked up my coat. I'll have someone drive you home. No. She stepped back. I don't need your pity. It's not pity. It's responsibility toward Uncle Lu. I pressed the intercom. Secretary Lin, prepare the car. Miss Lu is heading home. Willow suddenly rushed forward and grabbed my arm. George, please, give me one more chance. I promise. I gently freed myself from her grasp. Willow, some things, once missed, are gone. A knock came at the door. President Wang, the car is ready. Secretary Lin's voice called from outside. Willow looked at my calm expression and suddenly understood. The George who would forgive her no matter what she did was truly gone. George, she whispered his name one last time, so faint it was almost a sigh. I opened the door for her. Take care. In the hallway, Secretary Lin stared in surprise at the tear-streaked face of Willow Lu. Miss Lu, are you all right? Willow gave no answer. She followed Secretary Lin toward the elevator like someone walking in a dream. Before the doors closed, she cast one last glance at George's office. He was already back at the conference table, head lowered over the documents, as if everything that had just happened were nothing more than a minor interruption. On the ride home, neon lights flickered past the window. Fragments of the past flashed through Willow's mind. When she scraped her knee as a child, George carried her home. When she craved ice cream at midnight during college, George drove across half the city to find her favorite flavor. At banquets, He blocked drinks for her, draped his coat over her shoulders. Every time, she had taken his devotion for granted. Only today did she understand how precious that devotion truly was. Chapter 14. The car stopped in front of the Liu family villa. The butler hurried out with an umbrella. "Miss, where have you been?" The master was frantic. Willow stepped out numbly and walked into the living room. Diego was seated on the sofa, documents spread before him. The moment he saw her, he stood up. "Willow." He strode toward her, then froze at the sight of her disheveled state. "My God, what happened?" Willow threw herself into her father's arms and sobbed like a child. "Dad, I was wrong. I was really wrong." Diego stroked her hair and sighed deeply. "It's good that you know. It's good that you know." Through her tears, she choked out, "George, he's going to marry Anna." "I know," Diego replied quietly. "Chairman Wang called this afternoon. The two families have already come to an agreement." Willow looked up, her vision blurred with tears, taking in her father's exhausted face. "Dad, what do I do?" Diego guided her to sit on the sofa. "Willow, some things, once lost, are lost. What you need to do now is reflect and start over." "But he cut her off gently. "George has helped us more than you know. Without him, the Liu group would already be bankrupt." "He even what?" Diego hesitated, then pulled a document from the stack and handed it to her. "This is the full report from the private investigator. Besides Makoto's background, it details what George has done for you during this time." Willow's hands trembled as she opened it. Page after page, her tears fell uncontrollably. George had not only made the anonymous investment, he had quietly negotiated with the Liu group's creditors. When contacting hospital specialists, he specifically instructed them not to reveal his involvement. Even when she was dating Makoto, he had arranged for someone to keep watch discreetly, afraid she might encounter danger. The final page contained a photograph. It had been taken the day of the cafe confrontation. In it, George stood by the window, watching her leave in the rain. The pain in his eyes was unmistakable. Willow touched the photo. He still cared about me. He once did," Diego corrected softly. "Willow, let go. George has made his choice." She pressed the photo to her chest, tears sliding down silently. Willow stood before a mirror, her fingers brushing the lace of the wedding gown. George had commissioned it in Paris. It was meant for their wedding. "Miss," the maid hovered nervously at the dressing room door. "Are you really going to go like this?" Willow said nothing. She pinned the veil into her hair. In the mirror, the woman staring back was flawlessly made up, yet there was something unhinged flickering in her eyes. Her phone screen was still lit. On it was the official engagement invitation from the Wang Group. George Wang Anna Sue. Tonight, 7 p.m. Royal Ballroom, Imperial Grand Hotel. "Prepare the car," Willow said at last, her voice frighteningly calm. The maid hesitated. "The master said you're not allowed to." "I said prepare the car." Willow suddenly grabbed a perfume bottle from the vanity and hurled it at the wall. Glass shattered. A cloud of fragrance exploded into the air. "Are you defying me too?" The maid recoiled in fear and rushed off to comply. Willow inhaled deeply, picked up a small pill bottle from the table, and swallowed 2 white tablets. They were sedatives prescribed by her doctor. Lately, they barely worked. Luxury cars lined the entrance of the Imperial Grand Hotel. When Willow stepped out, the doorman visibly froze. Miss Liu, head held high, dragging the long train of her wedding gown behind her, she walked through the revolving doors. Inside the lobby, guests turned one after another. Whispers surged like a rising tide. "Is that Willow? My God, why is she wearing a wedding dress? I heard she hasn't been mentally stable lately." Willow ignored it all. She walked straight toward the elevator. Outside the royal ballroom, Wang Group staff were checking the guest list. When they saw her, the receptionist's mouth fell open. "Miss Liu, you're not on the list. Fuck off." Willow shoved her aside and forcefully pushed open the grand doors of the ballroom. Chapter 15. The ballroom glittered beneath crystal chandeliers. Glasses clinked. Laughter echoed. I stood on stage in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo. Beside me, Anna wore a pale gold evening gown, elegant and composed. The host had just finished speaking. Applause and warm laughter rippled through the hall. Then, the doors burst open with a thunderous crash. Every head turned. In an instant, the entire ballroom fell silent. "George," Willow's voice pierced through the stillness. "You can't marry her." Hundreds of eyes fixed on her. She stood at the entrance in a white wedding gown, the fabric glaring under the lights. Her makeup was immaculate, yet distorted by agitation. I narrowed my eyes, my expression turning glacial. Anna tilted her head slightly, a flicker of something like pity crossing her gaze. "Willow," my voice carried evenly through the microphone. "Don't make a scene." "I'm not making a scene." She dragged her train forward. The crowd parted instinctively, forming a path. "George, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Makoto is a liar, he deceived me. But now I understand. The one I love is you. It's always been you." A wave of murmurs surged through the guests. Phones were raised. Camera flashes ignited in bursts. Willow reached the foot of the stage and looked up at me. "Do you remember?" she pleaded. "You said you would always protect me, always be able to find me. I've come back. Please, don't abandon me." Her carefully prepared words fractured under the weight of real anguish. I set the microphone down and walked to the edge of the stage, crouching. I met her at eye level. Once, this posture had meant reassurance. Now, it carried distance. "Willow," I said quietly, low enough that only she could hear. "Go home. Don't humiliate yourself further." "I don't care." She seized my hand. "George, we had more than 20 years together. Does that mean less than a few months with her?" I gently withdrew my hand. "Love isn't measured in time." "Then what is it measured by?" "Money." Her voice sharpened. "Is it because the Sue family is more useful than the Lou family now?" Gasps rippled through the hall again. Anna stepped forward, standing beside me. She didn't speak. She simply looked at Willow. There was no anger in her eyes, no contempt, only a quiet, almost compassionate understanding. And somehow, that was more devastating than any accusation. "Anna," Willow screamed at her, "you think you've won? He'll never love you the way he loved me. Do you know which side he sleeps on? Do you know he—" "Security," I said calmly, my voice chillingly steady. "Please escort Miss Lou out." 2 uniformed guards stepped forward. "Don't touch me." Willow staggered back. She pulled a stack of photos from her clutch and flung them onto the floor. "Everyone look. This is Makoto. George knew he was a fraud and never told me. These are the other women he was dating at the same time. And proof he took my money." The photos scattered across the marble floor. Guests bent down, passing them between themselves. Willow turned back to me, tears streaming down her face. "You could have stopped this. You could have." I sighed softly. "I told you before, Willow, I did try." My voice carried a note of weariness. "You chose to believe him. Because I was stupid. Because I was blind." She cried hysterically, laughing through her tears. "But now I understand. You're not like them. You were sincere to me." The doors swung open again. A man in a silver suit strolled in, wearing a smirk of casual arrogance. "Well, this is lively," Makoto drawled. Willow froze as if struck by lightning. "Willow," he continued lazily, "did you wear a wedding dress to beg me to take you back?" Chapter 16. The entire ballroom erupted instantly. Willow's face turned ghostly pale, as if she had seen a specter. How are you here?" Makoto strolled forward leisurely, plucking a glass of champagne from a passing waiter's tray. "President Wang invited me," he said casually, raising his glass toward the stage. "Much appreciated, President Wang. If you hadn't sent someone to find me, I wouldn't have known my ex-girlfriend was this devoted." Willow whipped around to look at me. You brought him here?" I remained expressionless. "I simply thought you deserved to face reality." "Reality?" Her voice cracked. "Fine, then I'll face it." She turned on Makoto. "You liar. You scum. You stole my money, my feelings." "Oh, come on, Willow." Makoto took a sip of champagne. "Weren't you happy when you were with me? Have you forgotten what you said back then? In the end, we were both getting what we wanted." "You're lying." She lunged at him, but security blocked her. Makoto shook his head with a mocking smile. "Look at you now. Pitiful." He raised his voice deliberately so the guests could hear. "Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Lou and I did have a relationship, but let me clarify, the $2 million was a voluntary investment, not fraud. As for the other women," he shrugged, "we never defined exclusivity." A ripple of light laughter spread through the crowd. Willow stood frozen, her wedding gown suddenly absurd, like an outdated joke. Makoto leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Wake up. George doesn't want you anymore. Right now. You're just a clown." That was the final straw. Her legs buckled. She collapsed to her knees, the carefully styled hair falling loose around her distorted expression. I picked up the microphone. "Please continue enjoying the evening," I said evenly. "Security, escort both of them out." The guards lifted Willow. Another moved to guide Makoto away. Makoto shrugged indifferently. Before leaving, he even arched a brow at Anna. "Miss Sue, coffee sometime." Anna didn't even glance at him. She simply reached for my hand. That single gesture carried more power than any declaration. A flash of cold resolve passed through my eyes. As Willow was dragged past the guest seating, she heard a familiar voice. "Disgraceful." She looked up. Diego stood there, his face ashen with anger and heartbreak. "Dad," she whispered weakly. He turned away without another word. The ballroom doors shut behind her, sealing off the lights, music, and laughter. In the corridor, Makoto had already disappeared. Only 2 guards remained nearby, watching her warily. Willow dragged her wedding gown toward the elevator. Stumbling, the mirrored walls reflected her image, smudged makeup, tangled hair, hollow eyes, like a ghost. The elevator doors opened to reveal a group of well-dressed young guests. At the sight of her, they fell silent. As she brushed past them, whispers trailed behind. "That's Willow. I heard she's unstable. Went crazy over George, didn't she?" The doors closed, Cutting off the noise, Willow leaned against the cold metal wall and slowly slid down to the floor. Her gown spread around her like a withered flower. Outside the hotel, fireworks suddenly burst across the night sky, the grand finale arranged for the engagement celebration. Willow stood on the steps, looking up. The colorful explosions illuminated her tear-streaked face. A black sedan pulled up quietly in front of her. The window rolled down, revealing Uncle Joe's weathered face. "Miss Lou," he said gently, "young master asked me to take you home." That single form of address, Miss Lou, drew the final line between them. Chapter 17. Willow got into the car numbly. On the back seat lay a paper bag containing a few pieces of clothing she had left at the Wong residence. On top was a blue scarf, the one George had wrapped around her neck himself when they were 15. Fireworks continued to bloom across the sky, illuminating the entire night. Willow clutched the scarf tightly to her chest. Like a child who had lost everything, she finally broke down and sobbed. She now sat curled up on the bay window in her bedroom, her fingers unconsciously stroking that same blue scarf. Outside, autumn rain fell steadily, draping the city in a gray mist. Since the disastrous scene at the engagement banquet 2 weeks ago, she had not stepped outside this room. Her phone lit up, a message from her father. "Willow, come downstairs for dinner. The Lu Group secured new investment. We need to talk." She didn't move. The fate of the Lu Group meant nothing to her now. Her social media accounts had been overwhelmed by photos and videos from that night. Headlines like, "Lu heiress loses her mind," and "Failed wedding crash at elite engagement," had trended for days. Former friends had vanished overnight. She had become a public spectacle. On her bedside table lay a photo album, one she had spent 3 sleepless nights assembling. From age 5 to 24, every photograph of her and George was carefully arranged inside. Beside each one, she had written words of regret and longing. Her phone vibrated again. A news notification. Heir of the Wong Group and Su heiress spotted on romantic getaway in the Maldives, premarital honeymoon. The accompanying image showed George and Anna walking hand in hand along a beach. His other hand rested naturally at her waist, the place that had once belonged to Willow alone. Willow suddenly grabbed the album and hurled it at the wall. The heavy book burst open midair, photographs scattering like snowflakes. She dropped to the floor, frantically tearing at the smiling faces until her hands trembled and her nails split. "Miss," the maid rushed in at the noise, gasping at the chaos. "Your hands are bleeding." Willow stared at her blood-stained fingers and began to laugh. "He used to be so afraid of me getting hurt. Once I cut my finger slicing fruit, and he panicked so much he called an ambulance." The maid stood there helplessly, unsure what to say. "Prepare the car," Willow suddenly said, rising to her feet. "I'm going to the Wong Group, but the master said you're not allowed to." "I said prepare the car." An hour later, Willow stood in the lobby of the Wong Group headquarters, barefaced, dressed simply in jeans and a white blouse. Thick white bandages wrapped conspicuously around her wrist. "I want to see George," she told the receptionist, her voice hoarse. The receptionist looked troubled. "Miss Lou, President Wong has instructed. Tell him I'll wait here. I'll wait until he's willing to see me." Willow sat down on a lobby sofa, her back straight, eyes fixed on the elevator. Employees passed by whispering. Some discreetly took photos. She ignored them all. 3 hours passed. The sky outside darkened. The receptionist approached quietly, setting down a cup of water and a box of bandages. "Miss Lou, your hand." "Thank you, I don't need it," Willow replied without even looking. Chapter 18. The elevator chimed, and George stepped out, followed by several sharply dressed executives in tailored suits. He was wearing a dark gray 3-piece suit, listening to a subordinate's report, his brows slightly furrowed. Willow abruptly stood up, and the photo album on her knees fell to the floor. When George saw her, his steps paused for a moment. He said a few words to his subordinates, and they left first. "Willow." George walked up to her, his voice calm. "What is it?" At this distance, Willow could smell the familiar sandalwood scent on him mixed with a faint hint of coffee. His eyes were still as gentle as ever, only that gentleness no longer belonged to her. Willow said, I came to return this." She bent down, picked up the album, and handed it to me. "All our memories, they're all in here." "I didn't take it. There's no need. Please, just look at it once." Willow's voice trembled. "I spent 3 days making it." I took the album and casually flipped to a page. It was a photo from when we were 10, taken in the Wong family garden. The younger Willow was riding on the younger me's back, both of us smiling without a single worry in the world. "Do you remember that day?" Willow said urgently. "I accidentally broke Grandpa's favorite vase. You said it was you who did it, and you took a terrible beating for me." I closed the album. "Willow, what's in the past should stay in the past." I handed it back to her. "Cherish the present. Don't live in yesterday. Without you, what present do I even have?" Tears burst from Willow's eyes. "George, I know I was wrong. Give me one more chance, just one last chance." I glanced at my watch. "I have a meeting. Uncle Joe will take you home." "I'm not leaving." Willow grabbed my sleeve. Not unless you promise to give me another chance. I pried her hand off. Willow, don't do this. Then what do you want me to do? Her voice rose, drawing more attention. Kneel and beg you. I can do that. She made as if to kneel, and I grabbed her immediately. That's enough. A trace of anger finally entered my voice. I frowned. Look at yourself, the Liu family's heiress kneeling in public. Do you have any self-respect left? Self-respect? Willow let out a miserable laugh. Can self-respect bring you back? I took a deep breath and pressed the elevator button. Security, please escort Miss Liu out. 2 security guards stepped forward at once. Willow shook off their hands. Don't touch me. I'll walk myself. She turned and rushed toward the main entrance, only to collide with someone at the doorway. Anna. She was wearing a simple beige trench coat and holding 2 cups of coffee, clearly prepared for her and me. When she saw Willow, her eyes widened slightly, but she said nothing. Willow stared at her, chest heaving. Satisfied? Proud of yourself for stealing someone else's fiancée? Anna's gaze was as calm as still water, a faint sigh lingering at the corner of her lips. Miss Liu, I understand how you feel, but some bonds were never stolen by anyone. She paused slightly, her voice light as a feather falling to the ground. They were pushed away by your own hands. The words pierced Willow's heart like a blade. She raised her hand to slap Anna, but I grabbed her wrist. Willow. My voice was cold as ice. Don't force me to call the police. Her hand froze midair. Tears blurred her vision. The way I stood protectively in front of Anna was like salt poured onto her bleeding heart. She said, "You'll regret this." She took 2 steps back. A business marriage will never end well. Anna gently held my hand. Miss Liu, what George and I share goes far beyond just business. I lowered my head to look at her, my gaze softening. That small interaction was more lethal than any words could ever be. Chapter 19. Willow rushed into the rain without an umbrella, letting the icy drops soak her completely. Behind her, she heard me giving instructions to the security guards. Then Anna's gentle voice, "She needs help." Help! Willow burst into laughter in the rain. What she needed was time to turn back, a chance to choose again. For the George who would always tolerate and indulge her to return, but no one could give her that. In the days that followed, Willow became almost obsessed. She signed up for a cooking class, burning several blisters onto her hands just to perfect George's favorite braised pork meatballs. She found the gym George frequented and bought a 1-year membership, yet only dared to hide in a corner and steal glances at him. She even bribed a gardener from the Wang family estate just to track George's every move. But worst of all, she began posting anonymously online, fabricating dirt about Anna, from promiscuity during her college years to engaging in unethical business competition. The rumors spread quickly within their social circle and even affected the stock price of Su Construction. That afternoon, Willow was at home admiring her handiwork. An exposé claiming Anna had slept her way to the top had already been shared over 10,000 times. The doorbell rang. A courier delivered an envelope. Inside was a lawyer's letter, signed by the joint legal counsel of George and Anna, accusing her of defamation and infringement of reputation rights. Attached were complete records of her hiring internet trolls to spread the smear campaign. If you do not immediately cease and issue a public apology, we will take legal action. The final line read so. Willow's hands trembled so violently she could barely hold the paper. George was actually going to sue her for that woman. Were more than 20 years of history between them worth nothing? She grabbed her car keys and rushed out, heading straight for the headquarters of Su Construction. The front desk couldn't stop her. She stormed directly into Anna's office. Anna was in a meeting. Seeing Willow barge in, she merely raised an eyebrow and signaled for the others to leave first. "Miss Liu, what can I do for you?" She closed the folder in her hands, her tone calm. Willow slammed the lawyer's letter onto the desk. "You made George send this. You think this can scare me?" Anna glanced at the letter and nodded lightly. "It was a joint decision. Drop the act." Willow slammed the table. "You're nothing but a cheap woman who slept her way up. George will see your true colors sooner or later." Unhurried, Anna pressed the intercom button. "Security, please come to my office." Then she looked at Willow. "Miss Liu, I understand your pain, but defamation and harassment won't solve anything." "Pain? What do you know about pain?" Willow's voice broke. "George and I shared more than 20 years together, and you replaced that in just a few months." Anna spoke softly. "Love isn't measured by time, remember?" She added, "George told you that." The word struck like a blade, hitting Willow precisely at her weakest point. She staggered back a step, suddenly dizzy. You too," her voice shattered. The security guards entered and stood by the door, waiting for instructions. Anna shook her head slightly, signaling them not to intervene yet. "Miss Liu," her voice softened unexpectedly. "Let go, for your own sake. George has already moved forward. You should too." Willow looked at the woman before her, elegant, composed, neither arrogant nor submissive. There was no victor's pride in her eyes, only something close to compassion. At that moment, Willow suddenly understood George's choice. "I won't apologize." She turned and left, her voice so low it was almost inaudible. That evening, uninvited guests arrived at the Liu residence. When Willow went downstairs, she saw her father and George talking in the study. The door wasn't fully closed, and fragments of their conversation drifted out. "The Liu group's situation is worse than I imagined," it was George's voice. "That loan matures next week." Her father sounded much older than before. "I'll contact the bank, one last time." Willow stood outside the door, her fingers clutching the hem of her clothes tightly. One last time, what did that mean? Chapter 20. As I stepped out of the study, I saw her. I gave a slight nod. "Willow, why are you here?" She forced herself to meet my eyes. "Business matters," I answered briefly. "I should be leaving." "George," Diego suddenly called out to me. "Thank you, for Willow." I shook my head. "For you, Uncle Liu." That sentence was the final blow, completely shattering Willow's last illusion. I was helping the Liu family, not because of her. As she walked me to the door, Willow suddenly asked, "Do you really love her, Anna?" I paused but didn't turn around. "Yes, more than you ever loved me." This time, I turned to face her. My gaze was calm as still water. "Willow, love isn't a competition. Anna and we're right for each other." "Right for each other," Willow repeated the words, as if tasting some kind of bitter medicine. I hesitated for a moment, then added, "The rumors online have to stop. Anna may not care, but I won't tolerate it. And if I refuse, then I'll be very disappointed," I said. "Not as your former fiancé, but as someone who has known you for over 20 years. That sentence was more effective than any threat. Willow bit her lip and nodded. After George left, Diego came out of the study, looking utterly exhausted. "Willow, pack your luggage." "What? You're going to Switzerland next week?" "I have an old friend there, a psychologist." Diego rubbed his eyes wearily. "You need help, child." Willow wanted to argue, but found herself speechless. She went upstairs to her bedroom, opened her computer, deleted every post defaming Anna, and then deactivated the account. On her desk lay today's financial newspaper. The front page featured a photo of George and Anna together. The headline read, "The Strongest Alliance, Wang Group and Su Construction officially merge partial operations." In the photo, George had his arm around Anna's waist. They were gazing at each other with a kind of tacit understanding and happiness that stabbed at Willow's eyes. Willow gently traced George's smiling face with her fingers, then folded the newspaper and placed it at the very bottom of her drawer. Outside the window, the autumn rain continued to fall. She stood there, watching the raindrops trail down the glass like countless tear streaks. Finally, she gave up completely. Chapter 21. It snowed all night in Switzerland. Willow stood by the window of the sanatorium, staring at the vast expanse of white outside. 6 months had passed. Ever since Diego had forcibly sent her here, her days had become like the snow beyond the glass, quiet and pale. "Miss Liu, it's time for your medication." A nurse pushed the door open and set down a glass of water and several pills. Willow mechanically swallowed them. These tiny white tablets kept the nightmares away, helped her temporarily forget the humiliation of wearing a wedding dress and losing control in public, and made her think of George a little less. On the bedside table lay an embossed invitation, delivered 3 days ago. It was George and Anna's wedding invitation. Her father had forwarded it to her with only one line attached, "Hope you've recovered." The design was minimalist, ivory cardstock with a single line, "George and Anna cordially invite you to witness our happiest moment." Inside was their silhouette by the sea. George was lowering his head to kiss Anna's forehead, a brilliant sunset blazing behind them. Willow had imagined her own wedding invitation countless times. It would have been the Wang family's ancestral design, deep blue with gold-foiled edges. The inner pages printed with photos of her and George from childhood to adulthood. "And now, how are you feeling today?" The door opened gently, and Dr. Meyer walked in. He was a Swissman in his 60s, with a salt and pepper beard, but eyes as bright as a young man's. "Fine," Willow replied. She slipped the invitation under her pillow. Dr. Meyer sat down across from her, still looking at that invitation. Willow did not answer. In these 6 months, she had gone through anger, depression, self-loathing. Now, all that remained was a hollow calm. "Miss Liu," the doctor said gently, "avoiding your feelings will only prolong your suffering." "Do you hate them?" "Hate?" Willow shook her head. "I hate myself." "Why?" she said. "Because I ruined everything." Her voice was as soft as falling snow. "George once loved me so much, and I pushed him away." Dr. Meyer considered this. "Did you love him, or did you love how he treated you?" The question cut like a blade, striking a truth Willow had never dared to face. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. The doctor stood. "Tomorrow is your discharge day. Remember, the past cannot be changed, but the future can." After he left, Willow took out a stack of newspaper clippings from the drawer, all reports from the past 6 months about George and Anna. They attended charity galas together, co-hosted the launch of their newly merged company, stood before the media with fingers intertwined. In every photo, George's gaze was so tender it made her heart ache. That look had once belonged only to her. At the bottom was a court report: international fraud syndicate busted. Ringleader Ito sentenced to 7 years. In the photo, Makoto wore a prison uniform. No longer the charming and carefree man he once appeared to be. Willow tore all the clippings into pieces and threw them into the trash. Outside, the snow had stopped. Sunlight pierced through the clouds, glinting brilliantly off the snow-covered ground. She picked up her phone and booked a flight home. On the wedding day, the hotel was decorated like a dream, adorned with flowers and ribbons. The only daughter of the Su family was getting married. The young heir of the Wang family was taking a bride. This powerful alliance had drawn nearly the entire elite circle of business and politics. Willow stood inside a cafe across from the hotel, watching the lively scene through the window. She wore a simple black dress and a wide-brimmed hat, almost unrecognizable from the woman who had caused a scene in a wedding gown at the engagement banquet half a year ago. Chapter 22. A stretched limousine pulled up at the hotel entrance. George stepped out first, then turned to help the bride out of the car. Anna wore a simple yet elegant wedding gown. Her veil fluttered gently in the wind, her face glowing with happiness. George was dressed in a black tuxedo, tall and striking. His gaze never once left his bride's face. Willow's heart felt as though an invisible hand had clenched around it. The man who had once been gentle only to her now had eyes full of someone else. She paid for her coffee and walked toward the hotel. Without an invitation, she couldn't enter the main hall, but the hotel lobby had a live broadcast screen. She found a corner seat and quietly watched the ceremony on the screen. The priest was reciting the vows. George and Anna stood face to face, holding hands. When asked whether he was willing to take her as his wife, George's voice was clear and unwavering. "I do." Willow closed her eyes. Tears slid down silently. More than 20 years ago, 5-year-old George had said the same words to her in the garden. They had been playing house. George had woven a ring from grass and said with childish earnestness, "Willow, I'm willing to marry you. Now, please exchange the rings." Willow suddenly stood up. She couldn't just sit there and watch this happen. She rushed into the restroom, pulled out the white dress she had prepared, not a wedding gown, but close enough, and changed quickly. After running a hand roughly through her hair, she stormed toward the wedding hall. The security guard at the door recognized her. "Miss Liu, you can't." Willow pushed past him and charged inside. In the hall, I was slipping the ring onto Anna's finger. The guests were applauding with blessings. Willow's appearance was like a bomb, instantly shattering the perfect atmosphere. "George." Her voice rang sharply through the silent hall. Everyone turned. My expression shifted from surprise to guarded alertness. Instinctively, I stepped in front of Anna. "Willow." My voice was terrifyingly calm. "Don't do this." Willow stood in the center of the red carpet. Her plain white dress looked cheap and laughable against the luxurious wedding setting. Seeing my protective stance cut into her like a knife, she said, "I just came to wish you well." Her voice trembled. "George, I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong." The guests whispered among themselves. Some lifted their phones to record. Anna gently pressed my arm and stepped forward. "Miss Liu, thank you for your blessing. Would you like to stay and have a drink to celebrate?" That composed and gracious invitation only made Willow feel more humiliated. She looked at Anna. This woman's elegance came from within. It wasn't something a spoiled heiress could imitate. No need." Willow stepped back. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, George." My expression softened slightly. "Willow, let the past stay in the past. I hope you find happiness too." "Happiness?" Willow almost laughed. Without George, how could she ever be happy? But she only nodded and turned toward the exit. Behind her, the host's awkward voice resumed. "Let us continue celebrating this beautiful moment." Stepping out of the hotel, the sunlight stung her eyes. Willow removed her hat and let the wind scatter her hair. Half a year ago, she had left in the same disheveled state, but this time, she would not look back again. She called her father, but he didn't answer, so she went home directly to pack her luggage. Tomorrow she would leave for somewhere even farther away, New Zealand. Diego had a small vineyard there that needed someone to manage it. News of George's wedding was playing on her phone. She was about to turn it off when a breaking news alert interrupted. This afternoon, renowned entrepreneur Diego suffered a sudden cerebral hemorrhage and has been rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. The photo frame slipped from Willow's hand and shattered on the floor. It was a picture of her and her father from last year's birthday celebration. The hospital corridor felt endless. By the time Willow arrived, the surgery was already over. The doctor regretfully informed her that although Diego's life had been saved, he might remain in a long-term coma. It was caused by overwork and stress, the doctor said. "Your father has barely rested in the past 6 months while trying to save the company." Willow knelt beside her father's hospital bed and held his pale hand. These hands had once sheltered her from every storm, and all she had given in return was recklessness and trouble. "I'm sorry, Dad." She pressed her face against the back of his hand, tears soaking the sheets. The hospital room door opened gently. Willow looked up and saw someone she never expected. George. Chapter 23. I was still wearing my wedding suit, though I had taken off the jacket and loosened my bow tie. I saw the news and came right away. I said softly, "How is Uncle Lou?" Willow wiped her tears. "The doctor said he might never wake up." I walked to the bedside and bowed respectfully. "Uncle Lou has shown me immense kindness." "Willow, if there's anything you need, just say the word." Willow asked, "Isn't today your wedding?" "The ceremony is over." I glanced at my watch. "The reception can be postponed." Willow suddenly laughed. A bleak sound. "You're still like this, kind to everyone." I didn't respond. Instead, I took out my phone. "I've contacted several specialists. They'll come tomorrow for a joint consultation." "Why?" Willow looked up at me. "After everything I did to you, why are you still helping me?" I thought for a moment. In life, there are some bonds that can't simply be severed. Uncle Lou has always been like a second father to me. What about me? Willow couldn't stop herself from asking. "Between us, is there anything left that can't be cut off?" I looked out at the night beyond the window. "Willow, like you once said, if you're willing, I'll always be your brother." The hospital door opened again. Anna walked in, holding 2 cups of coffee. When she saw Willow, she paused slightly, then handed one over. "Miss Lou, take care." Willow didn't take it. "You should go back. Today is your big day." Anna set the coffee down on the table. "Uncle Lou is family to us as well." She naturally stepped to my side, our shoulders touching. The wedding ring on her ring finger gleamed under the light. That sight finally made Willow understand. She had truly lost George. Not from the night she brought Makoto to see me, but at this moment, when George stood beside someone who truly understood him and deserved him. "Thank you for coming," she said, standing up. "But I can take care of my father alone." I nodded. "Call anytime if you need anything." George and Anna turned to leave, their silhouettes perfectly matched, like a flawless painting. Willow stood by the window, watching the wedding car slowly drive away. Her phone vibrated with a news alert. "Fraudster Makoto confesses in prison," simultaneously dated 5 heiresses. The article listed all the victims' names. Hers was at the very top. Willow turned off the phone and returned to her father's bedside. Outside, the starry sky glittered brilliantly, like countless eyes watching the once proud girl who now had nothing left. 1 year later, the New Zealand sunshine was dazzlingly bright. Willow wore a straw hat, inspecting that year's grape harvest in the vineyard. Her skin had tanned to a healthy wheat color, and her arms had grown stronger from labor. In the office lay a recently opened letter from Diego's attending physician. His condition had slightly improved. Occasionally, he could open his eyes. On the desk was also a greeting card addressed to George and Anna for their first wedding anniversary. Willow had written only 2 words, "I'm sorry." There was no signature, but she knew George would recognize her handwriting. A strange car was parked outside the vineyard. Willow walked out and saw a familiar figure standing in the sunlight. Anna, dressed in a simple white shirt and jeans, holding a document envelope. "Miss Lou," she smiled politely. "Forgive the unannounced visit." Willow was too surprised to speak. Anna had come alone, without George. "George doesn't know I'm here." Anna seemed to read her thoughts. "This is my personal decision." Anna handed her the envelope. "This is Wan Group's new round of investment agreement for Lu Group. The new energy technology your father developed has made a breakthrough. The market prospects are promising." Willow took the documents, her fingers trembling slightly. "Why help me?" Anna looked toward the distant vineyard. "Because there's always been a corner in George's heart that carries concern for the Lu family." She turned to meet Willow's eyes. "I want him to fully let go and move forward." The implication was clear. Only when the Lu family truly stood strong again could George be completely at ease. "I understand." Willow nodded. Anna turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Makoto committed suicide in prison. There was a powerful syndicate backing him all along. That's why he acted with such impunity. It's been taken care of now." Willow smiled with relief. "Thank you." Watching Anna's car drive away, Willow took a deep breath of air scented with grapes. The sky was a flawless blue, without a trace of cloud. She walked back into the office, picked up her pen, and began signing the documents. A new life had only just begun. Chapter Epilogue. On the night of my wedding with Anna, inside the bridal suite, the warm golden light softened everything it touched. I stood before the floor-to-ceiling window, my fingers lightly tracing the rim of a wine glass, my gaze settling on Anna, who sat quietly on the bed. "Anna," I suddenly spoke, my voice low. "Do you regret it?" She lifted her eyes. Faint sparks of light reflected within them. A small smile curved her lips. "What about you?" she asked. I set the glass down and walked over to her. Kneeling on one knee beside the bed, I gently took her hand. "I will never regret it," I said, looking at her intently, enunciating each word. "Anything." Anna's lashes trembled slightly. After a moment of silence, she finally spoke softly. "George, actually, I've known you far longer than you think." I paused in surprise. She continued. 20 years ago, at that charity gala hosted by the Wang family, you were wearing a little suit, standing in the garden, helping a little girl pick up her kite. She smiled faintly, her eyes softened by memory. I was standing in a corner, watching you. My gaze shifted subtly as a blurred memory gradually came into focus. Later, Willow was always by your side, so I never dared to come closer, she said quietly. Not until your engagement to her was called off. My breath faltered slightly. My fingers brushed gently against her cheek. So you've been waiting for me all along. Anna lowered her eyes, the smile on her lips fading just a little. George, while there's still time, if you're not truly. Before she could finish, I pulled her into my arms, tightening my embrace as if I wanted to hold her into my very bones. There's no while there's still time, I said, my hoarse voice brushing her ear. Anna, I married you, not because of a business alliance, not because we're compatible, but because. I loosened my hold slightly, cupping her face and looking deeply into her eyes. From the first time you smiled at me at that reception, I knew I wouldn't be able to escape. Anna's eyes grew warm, and before she could speak, my kiss had already fallen, gentle, yet unwavering. Outside, the moonlight was bright and pure, and in my arms was the home she had waited half a lifetime to finally reach.